Hi, everyone. Hi, good night, good morning, wherever you're coming from. Hello, hello, hello to you. This is your girl, HP. Welcome to HP Chat Track. One more night, another morning, wherever you are. Welcome, Africa. Welcome, Asia. Welcome, Antarctic, North America, South America, Oceanic. Welcome, Europe, all seven continents. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is another night of track and field business. Of course, I have my friend from the Caribbean. It is about Caribbean track and field tonight. And of course, we had some new developments between last night and today that we're also going to touch on a little bit. The track and field world is buzzing. And of course, guess who is trending? Jamaica is trending. Welcome each and everyone, wherever you are. Josiah, good night to you. Good night, wherever you are in New Jersey. Good night, everyone. Welcome, welcome. It is, I'm smiling today. For me personally, today is a bittersweet day. And, during the show, I'll explain why it is a bittersweet day. But sports is happening, and sport is a business, sport is a career, and we have to remember that. But yeah, Jamaica is trending. Jamaica is trending from early this morning because, of course, a number of our top athletes is said that they are moving to another. In other words, they're switching countries to compete. They're switching allegiance to as it relates to track and field. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But welcome wherever you are, wherever you are. Make yourself comfortable because myself and Dennis Allen from Trinidad and Tobago will be having a discussion. We'll be talking about the absence of middle long distance in the region. We'll be talking about relay, why some athletes are not making themselves available for relay. And of course, we'll be touching a little bit on the Jamaican athletes who are switching. And this is nothing new. Switching allegiance is nothing new. This has been happening before a lot of us were born. So, this is nothing new. But of course, we another batch is switching over. We're going to talk about that. So don't go anywhere. Don't move. Stay right there because we have some things to talk about with my neighbor from Trinidad and Tobago. Stay right there, guys. I will be right back. And of course, you can post your comments and I will read them and we will engage you guys. So don't go anywhere. Stay right there.
Jamaica's track and field legacy is unmatched. It is a story of triumph, resilience, and extraordinary talent. But do you know the stories behind the athletes who brought us glory? Hi, I'm HP, founder of HP Chat Track. My mission is simple: to celebrate the rich legacy of Jamaica track and field and shine a light on the incredible people who make it happen. Winning that race was a dream come true, but the journey wasn't easy. It's not just about medals, it's about inspiring the next generation. Jamaica track and field isn't just a sport, it's our pride, our culture, our heart. Every week I sit down with athletes, coaches and fans to bring you stories of dedication, passion and legacy. Plus, we've got exciting news and exclusive insights into the world of track and field. Make your Thursday night be at HP's place. Come hang out with us at HP Chat Track Studio, where track and field is our business. Jamaica. One people, one legacy.
And we are back in the studio, and with me is Dennis Allen from Trinidad and Tobago, my neighbor from Trinidad and Tobago. Dennis, how are you? How has your day been? How has your week been going? I know that you've heard, the news that is going around. Jamaica is trending, of course. Quite a few of our athletes seem as if they are trying new things. And of course, we're going to talk about that and if it's good or bad for the sport. But how are you, sir? Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me once again. And welcome to all the listeners, all the squaddies. each and everywhere across this wonderful Caribbean Sea, and the rest of the world, of course. This week in Trinidad and Tobago has been really cool. It's rainy season has kicked in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been a wet week so far. We're gearing up to juvenile championships, track and field, which take place this weekend. So my son, he's 7. He's competing this weekend. He's doing the 6K,
Wow.
the 8K, and the long jump. His club is one of the long-standing top 3 championship clubs in the country. So you have high expectations for everyone with the Cougars, but the Cougars family. I just want to shout out everybody from the Cougars family. Um, Tonight as well over here we have UCI track cycling class 1 event. So we have quite a few guests, some top-notch trainees as well as some international friends, including the Jamaican cyclist Delia Palmer, long-standing, very, very, very good athlete. But she may be doing her victory tour. I'm not sure how long again we'll have her in the on the seat of a bike, but that's another story by itself.
Oh yes,
Um,
yes. Tonight is all about track
yeah, and
and
here
field.
we are, and you touched on it quite a bit there in your intro, and yeah, you lost quite a few. You lost, and I think maybe another one is on the way as well.
Yeah,
If rumors are to be believed, but
yeah.
you know, yeah.
It is a part of the business, and we're going to touch that a little bit. But let us just look quickly on the middle long distance in the Caribbean. We have been, are we marketing the middle and long distance to our youths, our Caribbean juniors? Are we doing a good job to market the middle and long distance in the Caribbean?
I think for if you look at the youth market um, as a product, you'd see anything above 400, very thin, very thin. You know, when I look at, and for the benefit of the audience, I am part of the National Selectors Committee for track and field for entry years. So I've been in that role for quite some time now. I would have been on that since the last administration, and I'm back again for this new administration. Um, when we look at Jamaica, right? And of course, Jamaica is not just the best in the Caribbean. Jamaica is a world standard in many, many ways, and sets the standard for many territories. Um, you look at the ESA rankings and the results for 800s, 1500s, and sometimes you see maybe as many as 2 dozen athletes faster than our fastest kids. You know, and they're running week in week out. We have maybe track and field secondary schools track and field championships. Then we have CURFTA trials. Then you
Mhm.
have junior championships. Those are the high value track meets, right? That's it. So there isn't very there isn't much. If you don't make it onto a national team, that's it for your season, basically. You hope to get them back again for national championships. For junior champs. That's it for
But
our youth.
how do we get them to buy into the middle and the long distance program? Because it seems as if after high school it has been for we and most times it goes up to the 400 meter, the 400 meter hurdle, maybe the 800 meters, but are we doing enough to tell our juniors that, look, you can get some glory here and put in the work to see 800 meters? Let us look at some data here from the Olympic Games. And I went as far back as 1908. Jamaica won 2 medals in the 800, 1948, 1952 with archery. We came back 1960, the 1960 Olympic Games, and another Jamaican, George Carr, won a bronze medal, but this time with a team called British West Indies. You should know about that,
Yeah.
Dennis. That team was formed by
The
Jamaica,
Empire Games.
yeah, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and Barbados. Those were the three islands,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know, come together. And 1960. 1976, Cuba won a gold
One,
medal,
two.
right?
Hmm.
1992, Cuba again, a bronze. 1996, Cuba again with a silver, and that's been it for the Caribbean. So the last time the Caribbean medal in a middle or long distance race was 1996, and 1996 Olympic Games, of course, it was in Atlanta. It's been 28 years, almost 30 years. Of course, recently we had
Shafika
Shafiq
Maloney.
Maloney from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. She came very, very close in Paris with a fourth place
Hmm.
finish.
Hmm. Hmm.
We have a junior championship in the region called the Carifta Games. Are we using the Carifta Games as a platform to get it to ensure that our athletes stay within these disciplines to become world beaters?
See, that's the thing. Um, you know, we have to look at what we talked about last week, the popularity of sprinting. Short sprints dominate in a way that is remarkable. It's a culture thing. We worship the speed. We value the speed. We love that 100, 200. We love it. After that, we don't really, maybe the quarter milers, and I've seen a huge drop off. Not so much in Jamaica, but for the rest of the Caribbean, there's a huge drop off in terms of qualifying standards, in terms of the numbers of participants in the 400. And if you look at the 800, it's even worse.
Yes.
Um, how do you motivate somebody for, you have an 8-year old kid come into your club for the first time, you say, okay, you're probably not going to be the fastest 100-meter runner. Okay. You're probably not going to be not going to have the endurance to be a 5,000-meter runner or a 5K runner on the road. So you have this middle ground, which could be anywhere between 800 to 3,000 meters. There's a lot of training. Then to motivate the parents, how do you tell a parent of a typical 8 or 9 year old? Most of our athletes will start between 7, 8, 9. How do you tell a parent, okay, you have to get up in the morning, 4 or 5, and do some road running with your kid? Some people could do that, but most of the parents they park and they wait. How are you going to get that kid to run? So, like, if you look at Isaiah Alder, who is one of our young rising middle distance stars, um, his dad would have been running with him since probably age 8, 9, right? When you look at another kid, Tafari Waldron, his mom didn't run with him, but he had company, and he would have switched over to mids and distance at a later time, maybe about 10, 11, 12, maybe even later than that. So I guess what it is do we have a culture where parents feel comfortable dropping their kids off and not seeing them, not out of eyesight? I don't know about that in Trinidad. Most of the young people, the young talent that I see are being brought into to the sport, especially to that event, by a parent who is also in distance or middle distance running, right? And they run with them. So there's a new group, Elite Endurance, Big shout out to Coach Jason Paris. And he coaches those two young athletes that I just mentioned, Isaiah Alder and Tafari Waldron. And he has built a kind of coaching elite. So he's not a new club. He's just like, listen, stay in your club, come run with us. We run with a big pack, men and women, girls and boys, and you're running with your peer group. You're running with a group, a training group that is capable of national records, for instance, age group records, and qualifying you for Curfew games. So the level of motivation is high, the training standards are high, and the consistency is every day, all day, every day. So sometimes they do the morning training, sometimes they do the 2 days, and they have a group where you can say, you know what, I can drop my kid off in this. But
What
that's new.
about
That's relatively new.
what about if we use the data to motivate them? Because let us look at some more data here. I'm looking at the World Championship data, and I went all the way back to 1983 when the World Championship started. The first World Championship was 1983 in Helsinki. And when I look at the medals won at the World Championship level, they're all to Cuba, all of them to Cuba. 1991 Cuba, 1995 Cuba, 1997 Cuba, 2005 Cuba. The Caribbean has not won any middle or long distance medal since that. So when you put the Olympic Games from 1908 to 2024 and the World Championship from 1983 today,
Yeah.
we are just like about 11 medals, and it's just um like four countries. Cuba is the only one to medal at the World Championship level. So I am going to ask this question. Is there something, do we need to have a conversation with our neighbor, Cuba, to find out what they're doing, to see how we can collaborate to get their help to bring the Caribbean a little bit more in the party?
I think we should preface our conversation, or at least I have to preface my conversation about Cuba and the athletes over in Cuba with the condemnation of a 6 decade illegal unilateral embargo of the country based on what? Some failed political ideals, some, the
But we don't want
president
to
and
we
president and president after
Yeah, we
one
don't want
another.
to get political. We don't want
No,
politics.
I just want to be clear that
Yeah.
we talked about a strong history for Cuba,
Hmm.
and they've been shut out of that. Like for instance, tonight in the cyclone, no Cubans. Why? Because they have travel embargoes. Their planes can't be um, they can't be maintained. There are so many different things.
Yeah.
So we back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, Cuba was in the top 4 or 5, top battling for the number one spots in the Olympic Games. They were top medalists. They were strongly supported by former Soviet Union and all of that. And we don't want to go too deep into all of
Right.
that.
Yeah, we're not.
But
Yeah.
the point of it is this:
Hmm.
the athletes are there, the coaching is there, the money is not there.
How do
we
we?
can we can
How do
tap
we
into
find
that
the
that
money?
knowledge base.
Yeah.
We can tap into that knowledge base, and like it's worked out for us. um you know Mr. Mastrapa, he has been instrumental in nearly all of the major throws athletes here in Trinidad. um Most notably, of course, Kishon Walcott. We have so much that we owe to Ishmael Mastrapa. um and he is one of a battalion of Cuban sports, high level sports officials and coaches who can come into other parts of the Caribbean, just the same way we have had Cuban doctors, nurses, pharmacologists, that could come in and help. Um, it's so much, but that the politics, it's unavoidable. It's the handbrake that we're driving with. But to put it into a context, when we look at, for instance, an athlete like Juan Torena, who would have won the 400, 800 double, which has never ever been done before
Mm-hmm.
or after, at the Olympics, he would have done that in the same year that we would have won our first, Trinidad and Tobago's first gold medal at the Olympics, right? So when we look at that 1976 Olympics, when we look at how competitive so many other nations were, now when you look at track and field, it's just a few, it's USA, it's your country, Jamaica, and then it's more or less African countries, and Africa is what, 55 different countries. So just to label it Africa kind of seems like minimalizing, diminishing what has been done. But the African stronghold on especially middle distance, women's middle distance running, everything from 800 go right up to steeplechase and 5,000
5,000,
and 10,000.
10,000. Mm-hmm.
Those women may run in different uniforms, but they're African, we know.
Yes.
you know
Yes.
um
And we're going to talk about that when we talk about switching allegiance.
yeah, we will. And the thing about it is, it's not easy. But I don't think anything in track and field is easy. If you look at the jumps, if you look at the throws, it's really technical. The preparation is so specific. When you look at sprinting, you know, I always refer to a comment that I heard online. Before you learn to run fast, you have to unlearn how to run slow. You know, because most people think of sprinting as just shuffling faster. It's so
Mm-hmm.
technical. It's so
Very
technical.
technical. Very.
And it's a stack of things. And I was just talking to one of the mommies there today. It's a stack of things that you have to put together in a race, right? You have your start, you have your drive phase, you have your acceleration, you have your speed maintenance, you have your end. And then, sometimes it might take just a lean. How do you lean? Your first step on your lean accelerates, then your second step decelerates, right? So if you lean too early and you have to take a third step, you lose your race. So learning how to lean is something that an athlete has to do at top speed, because you can't lean at your slow speed because your stride length is different, your body position is different.
You know,
Do we hear enough coaches talking about these
when
very technical
when you
things?
say that, Dennis, two athletes from Jamaica came to my mind when you talk about the lean at top speed. I think about Karen Stewart and Veronica Campbell Brown. They will be coming at full speed, leaning, and I'm like, how is it that they did not fall? You know,
Yeah, yeah, and that's something.
I've seen Noah Lyles coming at full speed, leaning, and that was how he won that 100-meter at the Olympic Games. So it is, it's very interesting that you mentioned that. But before we go any further, let us just welcome each and everyone wherever you're coming from. I'm here with my friend, my neighbor from Trinidad and Tobago tonight, Dennis Allen. We're in the building. I see Olympian Ivan Saunders, Bonnie M. saying hello. 1972, 1976 Olympian, Jamaica. I'm also seeing Ethelyn Tate, another Olympian, 1988 for Jamaica. I'm seeing Paul Boyson. He's saying good night to all, and he's saying TNT, good night to you. Tony P saying greetings, everyone. I'm also seeing another Jamaican Olympian, Lilith Aldridge, 1972, 1976, and 1980 Olympian in the building. But let us segue a little bit now to the relays, Dennis. The relays. I don't know where to start with the relays, but we
Where,
see.
where, where are all your Jamaicans? That's a good place to start. Where
I
to go? Where to go?
I don't know where to start. The relay is. Let me ask you something though. Why are some top athletes, especially from the Caribbean, why are they not making themselves available for relay duties at the World Relay? Based on your experience and your opinion, why do you think they are staying away from the World Relay?
Now, before I enter that conversation, I have to delaminate myself from Dennis Allen, the individual, and Dennis Allen, the national selection committee member,
Yes,
right? Um, I don't have information based on any correspondence from any athlete other than the fact that they made themselves unavailable, right? So I can't speak to any Trinidad and Tobago athlete who
I
made
can't speak
themselves
on any
unavailable,
athletes
right?
either, but I will say this. I will say this, and I said it to someone today, and I'm going to throw it out at you because they asked me to throw the question at you. If you have a contract line up for you, let's say a sponsor come to you and they said, Dennis, if you make the national team this year for the World Championship in the individual 400 meters, we will sign you for a sign-on bonus of $50,000 and then a monthly stipend or a monthly salary for the next 3 years. And if you have the relay to run in May and the trials in June, how would you respond to that? Would you make yourself available for the relays in May?
Right. So you're talking about life changing money right there, right?
Right, yes.
Um, we look at relay as national duty, all right? And we look at it as almost like a sacrifice because, first of all, the medal bonuses are split, right? So there isn't there isn't a there isn't much incentive financially to do a relay, right? Um, then you look at aside from Jamaica, you have everybody else is relying a lot, heavily a lot, on college kids. Are these college kids going to get released in time and with enough time to participate in a relay camp, to do enough, acclimatization? They fly in and they take a couple of days. They're not jet lagged. They get a chance to put up their legs. Um, Sitting on let's say you have a West Coast athlete, right? A USA West Coast athlete, and they're flying in. They're flying into Trinidad. They're flying in from, let's say, LA. They're flying in from Arizona. They're flying in from Washington, maybe, or Oregon, wherever. They're flying in from the West. Colorado, boom. They're taking about 10, 15, 18 hours in flight time. They're probably connecting. They may be taking about 24 hours to get here, right? That's on their legs. That's poor airport food. That's very poor rest. They're not sleeping. They're probably um, sitting and sleeping. People don't take those things into to consideration. If you're going to put yourself and your body through that to come and run a race with other people who are going to be putting their body through that, chances of victory are very thin, very thin.
Slim.
So when you put that into it and you say, okay, we're going to do a 1 week, and then that same week is something like this week, outdoor nationals for our youth athletes, right? Curfta Trials is during a period where a lot of the indoor national championships are taking place, right? Or state championships. These kids are over there, especially the dual citizens. They're coming in, and they're sacrificing big things,
Yeah.
right? Because they are running for a program over there. They're running from a high school or academy or their club, which is why they're good. But then when it comes to peak, they're not. We don't have that. So then we segue to the money tour. So the money is specifically for the pros or the soon-to-be pros. What's the incentive for somebody to say, okay, am I gonna minimize or forego my chances of of having at least another 3 years in this sport, why am I sacrificing that? Why am I letting somebody touch the bag, like these people say? Who does that? So for me, I always and I think I would have mentioned it last week, the number of Jamaican uh, agents, registered certified agents in World Athletics. I think you have 19 the last time I checked. And there are 60 something American ones. There are zero Chinese agents. So if you're in a camp and the Nike money and the Adidas money and the Puma money is there, and it's okay, you have Mr. Jamaican, Miss Jamaican, Mr. Jamaican, Miss Jamaican, Mr. Trini.
Zero.
Where is the incentive to say, you know what, I'm going to risk that for the possibility of being able to run with 3 or 4 other people who are going to be put in a compromised position to compete for maybe a third or fourth place on a lean. I'm not sure. I'm not
So,
sure we giving them a very good tempting bite. I'm
yeah.
not sure.
So should we ask then World Athletics to go back to the original format to qualify countries for uh
For
champion
time?
to qual for the relays? Because before last year, or was it 2023, before last year, the world relay was not qualifying for major championship. So maybe World Athletics should look at it, and but then again, they might say other countries are doing it. Other countries turn up. Europe turn up. Africa turn up. Why is North America not turning up? Why we in this region not turning up? Of course, the United States, they turn up to ensure that they are qualified for all relays. As it is right now, Jamaica is only qualified for Jamaica is the only country in the Caribbean or the island in the Caribbean that has qualified for any relay at the World Championships coming up, and we're only qualified for two. So we're basically chasing three qualifying spots going into Japan. Will we get them? We don't know.
See,
So
okay.
go
So
ahead.
let me adjust this quickly, right?
Hmm.
The points system is a complete failure, right? Um, Running for times makes sense. You run fast, you qualify.
Yeah.
But the World Athletics and formerly IAAF, they had to make sure that their major stakeholders, which are the European meets, are happy. And we saw that before the age of the Diamond League, they were fading. Some of them were dropping off. Some of them that would have had 50, 60 years history were just dying. And the Diamond League was a kind of jump start, kind of, those paddles cleared,
Hmm.
boom.
Hmm.
And they lived, they survived. And now what we're seeing is another set of uh, events that are suffering because they're not well supported financially. The business model has changed with broadcast revenue, etc. So what we're seeing is that there's a further decline in terms of the big picture. At the top of it, the biggest events, they're getting smaller. The biggest athletes, they want more money. The biggest TV stations, their viewership is getting smaller. Nobody has the kind of revenue that TV would have had in the 80s, 90s anymore. So what we've got is a case where how do we create these new events without obligating these athletes to, to come in? Other than that, if we don't obligate them in a way or incentivize them in a way that they feel they have some kind of prize value that is non monetary. So you say, okay, you qualify for a world championship, you qualify for the Olympics. If you win here, or if you in the finals here, or if you in the top 16 here, or whatever the case may be, as in world relays. All right, it was making sense when it was in Bahamas for most of us because we could get on a plane and go to the Bahamas, and it's right there. When we have to go outside of that, the cost benefit gets kind of ridiculous.
But isn't that what the other countries coming into the Caribbean would say? Who is coming from Asia, from Europe, from Africa?
And if you look at it, we weren't seeing them. We weren't seeing them. They weren't there at that, with that kind of. In the first few years of World Relays, it was more like a Caribbean and American show, right? There were other people, of course. There were other territories, of course. But those are the people with a lot of money. We are not that. If you look at Grenada, look at Whitsun where was it? Whitsun Classic or whatever it is. The in Grenada the other day, the crowds weren't here. The crowds, it looked really thin to me, right? Racers didn't look overwhelmingly. The
True.
turnout wasn't great, you know. And then we could talk about Grand Slam track, but we'll get to that eventually. Track meets in the U.S. are being held in places that are just one notch above a high school track, and it's maybe 2,000 people. That's a typical college level or pro am level track meet in the US. People don't understand this. When you look at the highlights, most of it is one camera in the stands, and that's it. Sometimes two cameras in the stands. If you look at Flow Track is charging you how much? $19 US a month. For most of the content is one camera, two camera, right? It's not a pro level product, but we're making demands of athletes that have to stay at a professional elite level. You
Right.
have to compete and recover and eat and travel as a professional athlete. Otherwise, you're going to be. Take for instance, right? This weekend I went to Antigua. I went to Antigua for a friend's cricket festival. Um, I was on a Liat flight. It's a very small plane. And I'm on this plane, and my feet are swelling because I'm tight. I'm in a tight little seat, right? There are no, there's no first class on that flight. There's no business class on that
No
flight.
business class.
You understand? So I'm 6 feet tall. I did not get an option to do an exit row seat where I can stretch out, right? So if I look at, I'm an elite level athlete, and I'm traveling from one of these. If I don't like to call them small islands because we are all small islands, right? But if we look at like the Windward and the Leeward Islands, if we look at places like Dominica or Dominica, we look at St. Vincent, Grenada, we look at St. Lucia. These places have top quality athletes. St. Kitts, Nevis. They
Mm-hmm.
have top quality athletes. But the travel infrastructure does not help. So at least one of those legs of those flights are going to be on very small planes, very uncomfortable seating, and you're not being. This is not like the NBA where you jump on a thing and you have,
You're on a jet. You're on a
you're
private.
not you don't have. So there are certain intrinsic advantages to living and competing in one of these cities in the US or in Europe,
True.
right? So until we have a business model that incorporates those realities and mitigates against those setbacks and drawbacks, we're continuously going to be second class citizens, right?
But how do we fix that for ourselves
Money.
so that how do we tap into where the money is? How do we get the resources to build the region? Because obviously we cannot depend on others to come in and set up things for us in our home. So how do we as a region get this thing together, find the resources, find the investors to to help us because we cannot remain like this, as a region.
Sport as a business is a very complex matrix of things that have to work at the highest level, right? Audience, sponsors, economic value, commercial value, right? We have the infrastructure in place, right? So we have all the big stadia, they all have the high mast, light towers, we have the Mondo tracks, we have the synthetic tracks, we have all of these things in place. We don't have, aside from sports max, right? We could talk about that, but we'll get into that later. We don't have like an ESPN. We don't have an NBC. A broadcaster with a vested interest in Olympic level sport that is constant. NBC invests in Olympics year after year after year after year,
Yeah.
billions and billions and billions of dollars. We don't have that. So there isn't any there isn't any payoff. So if you as a small event promoter, if you're talking to a global leader corporation or company, or even like a regional leader corporation or company, corporate entity, and you're saying, hey, listen, we want you to come in here, come and you build with us, you do our youth development, then you do our national development, then you get into the regional teams, then you
Hmm.
get into the regional elite, and then you get into the professional elite, and then you get into the Olympics and the World Championship elite, right? That value chain for a broadcast, where is it? Who is investing? I'm not sure where it is in Jamaica, but here in Trinidad and Tobago, we don't have that anymore.
And this
The
is why I think we need to come together as a region because we have something called CARICOM. What is CARICOM there for? But let me ask you a question. Do you think there's a cultural bias towards sprinting in the Caribbean that is overshadowing things like
everything
this?
else, yeah,
Yes.
everything else, everything
How do
else. I
we
don't know
how
why. I
do
don't know what it is either. You know, Bruce Jenner, while he was still Bruce Jenner, was the poster boy, Sports Illustrated cover boy, Wheaties box hero, and then when Daley Thompson won, I think it was the 1984 Olympics in LA. What happened? They said we're not going to put the winner of the decathlon on all these Wheaties boxes because he's not American. So they went for the sprinter, and that was it. We never looked back. Carl Lewis, um, Maurice Green, and a succession of very fast men and sometimes women, not to a high extent either, right? I think only in the age of Shelley Ann Fraser Price that we've seen a genuine female sprint superstar, you know, and Elaine, of course. Those two women defied everything in what I would have considered a male dominated space, right? But that switch from NBC, that switch, that they needed to create that American hero. And that American hero became Carl Lewis. For whatever I'm not going into the politics of Carl Lewis either. But
yes.
that era, 1984 and then 1988 with Ben Johnson almost destroyed the sport. Not because of what he did, but because of the way the rabid American press went after him
Yes.
because they were so hooked on that Carl versus Ben narrative. Now they had this thing, they had this raw meat that they could just bite into. And it destroyed everything else because it dominated every news cycle. It
Mm.
dominated every back page. It was the first time Ben Johnson's um, trial. in Canada was the first time we saw sports news breaking out on the back page into the page three with the legal and the crime, right? So now you started to see sports and crime, and that was led by that case, and then OJ, right? And it destroyed what we thought we knew about sport,
Yeah.
right? So if you look at that period of time from the 70s, well, I was born in 1971, so my dad was an avid
We're
sports
both
fan,
70s babies.
right? So when you look at, of course, you look much younger than I do, right?
So I'm
But
before, but I'm a 70s baby, early
when
70s too.
when you look at that era, it wasn't just the sprints though. It was everybody. We talked about it. I would watch ice skating. I would watch ice hockey. I would watch ski jumps. I would watch everything in Winter Olympics. And for Summer Olympics, we would watch everything. You know what we didn't watch? We didn't watch soccer. Nobody watched Olympic soccer until maybe about the mid 90s, right? When FIFA started letting their pros come back into the national team setup, right? Before that, it was under 25 only, right? So there were so many different things. Excuse me. There were so many different things that built that culture of sports as a viewing experience. Now, what we have is sports as more like geopolitics. Americans dominate the space because NBC dominates the sponsorship.
Yeah.
You have Visa, you have all these American brands coming into the space and they're demanding, rightfully so, is their money. They're demanding that they have a say and American athletes have a presence in all of the narratives. So
But
when we have,
blame them though. I mean, you can't
what's
blame
that?
them.
No, exactly, you
You
can't.
can't blame them. Yeah,
You
if their
can't.
money, they're spending the money. So if my athlete finish last and I want to interview them over somebody else, then
Yeah.
I
But
have
then you have to blame Canuck Broadcasting Inc., right? Canuck, which is the Caribbean Association of National Olympic Committees, right? They had a great idea leading into Rio. I think in between London Olympics and Rio Olympics 2012 to 2016, there was a whole push towards surge towards trying to get our Caribbean voices and Caribbean representation on those Olympic broadcasts. Right? So I leave it up to Canuck to explain what really happened
what
with
really happened.
Canuck Broadcasting. And it's a fiasco because if the rumors are anywhere near
We need to
accurate,
have a show on broadcasting, track and field and thing. But hold that thought. Let us just say hi
yeah,
and welcome to everyone else just coming in. I see another Jamaican Olympian, Dorothy Scott Genius, 1980, 1984 Olympian. She's saying hello everyone, HP and guest, and she's also reminding you guys to like and share the content. All in the game is saying, hello, have you all touched on today's mini exodus of Jamaica field athletes to Turkey? What a term. All in the game is also saying the lack of world class 8 and 1500 Caribbean athletes is alarming. He's talking about Maloney's fourth place in Paris in the women's 800-meter final has been the best result for the region in years. And I totally agree with you, all in the game. But all in the game, it is not just on the athletes. I said this before and I will say it again. If we create the space, the athletes will come. And the thing is that there's no place for them to go. Let me talk about in Jamaica. In Jamaica, if an athlete finishes high school running, let's say a boy running 1 minute 50, 1 minute 50 seconds plus, um, and he comes to me and said, HP, I want to stay in Jamaica and train. Which club would you recommend that I go to? I cannot recommend any, and that's the reality because we are mostly into the sprints all the way to the 400 meter because the 400 meter is now a sprint race. So there's really no space for athletes like that to go. So what do? They maybe try to convert to a quarter miler, and they did not make it. They're not quick enough
Not gonna make it.
to, because the 400-meter for men now, where is it? If you're not running 43 seconds low, you're not even getting into a final. You have to be running 43 mid to maybe
Look,
44,
mhm.
very, very low. So what?
Look at the last three or four 400-meter world records, right? The people who ran those world records were maybe the slowest of them would have been a 100 meter runner, right? Wade Kurt, sub 10, sub 20. You understand? Um, if you look at Jareem ran a 10:16 or something, a 10:0 something, I think, too. Jareem Richards.
Hmm.
And of course, he's a sub 20 runner as well. All right. So for you to get a medal in a four, this idea that, a 400 is somebody who could run four consecutive 10:10s. That's what it is. That's what you're really going to be running, right? Because that's what a 43 is.
Hmm.
Four consecutive 10:10s.
Hmm. Yeah.
So if you can't do that, you're not going to win nothing.
Yeah.
You're not going to win anything. You
Hmm.
might get a scholarship. You maybe might get a contract.
Yeah.
You might make it into a lane in the Diamond League. You might win a CAC games if you're a Caribbean athlete. But you're not going to win nothing. You might win a knockout. You
Yeah.
might
Not, not,
might
not.
you might get a medal or make a final in a Pan Am's,
Yeah. They
Commonwealth.
the
Maybe
world at the world and Olympic
you're not
level,
going to win, bro.
very
No.
tough. I mean, we've seen Shawnee Miller Weber hold it together for the Caribbean. Her teammate Steve Gardner, he too held it together for the Caribbean.
Big up Stevie
Shade,
G.
yeah, Sade Williams from Barbados, also Sharika Williams herself, 2015 and 2016, both at the World and Olympics. But to me, we are still a little way off now, because when you look at the quarter mile now, especially for the men, Steve seems as if he is still injured. He's the one we were banking on. I think Kirani James might be on his way out. So, it's tough. It's tough. So we have to create a space for our juniors who are running when you look at Carifta and you see them running the 800, the 1500 meters at Carifta, where do they go after that? Where are they now? Where are they? Nowhere, because there's really nowhere for them to go. But segueing a little bit now, let us talk quickly about. I want to hear
Be-
your thoughts.
just a second. Before we go there, I just wanted to add something, right? I want to shed some hope. I want to put some light and some hope into this, right? With the way that the college track and field is changing with the NIL deals now, and with that recent ruling about paying athletes, what you're going to start seeing is a more increased emphasis on distance and middle. You're going to see
Hope so.
people who are going to run in cross country and then go and run indoors and then go and run outdoors. And those athletes are going to be running everything from 800 all the way up to cross country. Some of them may even dabble in steeple. So you're looking at 800, 1500, 3000, 5000 steeplechase, right? This would give us a college program three bites of the apple: cross country, which is a national championship, indoors, which is a national championship, and outdoors. But it also means that you're going to be running from the time you jump off that plane in College Town, USA, right up until middle of May. You're going to be running, 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 and running. But you might be able to get a scholarship. Maybe better than faster than somebody who's just running an 800, somebody who's just running a 400. A 400-meter specialist, you're going to run a 4 relay and a 400 individual. Very few teams, college programs, have more than two athletes in their what do you call it, in their conference finalists, right? Very few have more than two. So it means that you're only going to be able to give a college program points in two events. Whereas if you're a middle distance runner with that kind of range, you can give your college program points in three or four events each college championship. So it's something to think about, right? It is not everybody is not going to be an Olympic medalist. You have to start thinking, what is the best thing for me, my family, my future, my life, my legacy, right? So think about it.
Very interesting. There is hope, people. There is hope. There is hope for the middle and long distance for the Caribbean, and I can't wait because that's where my heart is.
Right.
That's my heartbeat to see the middle and long distance from the Caribbean at these parties. But let me hear your thoughts on the Grand Slam. The Grand Slam was, as you would have heard, prematurely ended. Of course, LA will not be happening next week. Just quickly, your thoughts on that, and then we're going to get into switching allegiance, switching countries.
Predictable. I think the statement would be Stevie Wonder could have seen that one coming. Um, in all of the conversations that Michael Johnson had about Grand Slam track and the lead up and the build up, none of it was talking about a broadcast contract with a free to air broadcaster. That is still the gold standard of broadcast. We're talking about a cable company. Cable is when last you watch cable, right?
I don't have
This
cable.
exactly. Cable subscriptions are down. There's a type, a trend of Gen Z and Gen X to Gen Z and Gen Alpha now, where they're talking about cable cutters, right? You're basically saying you want to watch, you want to consume your entertainment, and you want to consume your news and information via a mobile device, wherever it is. So it means that most of those platforms are free, right? Grand Slam Track signed a deal with Peacock. Who watches Peacock? Very few people, right? Furthermore, it's a subscription base. Are you going to buy a Peacock subscription just to watch Grand Slam Track? Not enough people did. So where was the money going to come from? Investors invest in something with the hope of getting a payback. Most tier one or first round investors will put money in, increase the value, and then sell to the next second, third, fourth round investor. That's how investment works. So when you have a situation where they talk about 30 million investment, that's first round. You didn't buy TV camera yet. You didn't buy production facilities yet. You basically spent a lot of it on Jamaica rebuilding the track, and it was a beautiful track, you know, and putting together that event, and it came out wonderfully well. But then to get the stands filled,
Yeah,
you had to give away all of those tickets. From the time that came, if you go on Grand Slam track on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, I don't even think they're on Twitter, but you could go and check TikTok, YouTube. It doesn't have a big presence, right? The marquee person that they brought in, Sydney
Sydney McLaughlin.
McLaughlin, right? McLaughlin of Roney. She's a married woman, so let's give her husband his dues, right?
I agree. I agree.
So Sydney McLaughlin Lavroni is the marquee. She got allegedly, because I didn't see the check. She got she got paid a fair appearance fees, and she won those two slams, and she was supposed to be paid, which her coach is basically saying that they didn't get paid yet, right? So once you start seeing all this money going out, None of the money coming in. Nobody's watching. Your biggest star is not sharing, right? Because one post on her YouTube, it just didn't make any sense, right? Then you hear Noah Lyles going on Cam's show and saying exactly why he did not participate because they didn't show him the money, right? Now, for whether you like Noah Lyles or not, it doesn't matter. The point that he made was valid, though. What is my worth? I'm the fastest human man in the world right now. And what is my worth? I'm the Olympic this and the world champion, that 6 time, all of these things. All the accolades, great. But then it came down to what have you done for me lately? He did nothing for Grand Slam track. Grand Slam track was no Shikari, no Noah, and Sydney just running. Wasn't going to happen. So I'm not surprised at all. Do I want to see it happen? I'm not even sure. Because to be honest, the same set of people will be running every week, every week, every week. What does that say for my under 20 guy coming up? What
But
does it say for my under 20 girl coming up?
remember, Dennis, they have two categories. They have the racers who are signed, and of course, the
The
challengers.
challengers, right? Okay,
They
name me
rotate
4 challengers, HP.
four challengers.
Name me 4 of them.
Four of them. All right, let's go challengers. Daniel Williams was a challenger.
Right,
Uh, Megan Tupper was a challenger.
right.
What's that young man named Jabari? Jabari. The UPS young man. He was a challenger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, was
So that's two
Jeremy?
and a half.
No? That's true. No, that's not cool. That's true. But I
But you,
disagree.
you, you see the point I'm making.
I disagree that Grand Slam, when you said Grand Slam did not do anything, I think they have done a lot for the sport. And one of the main things that I take away from it that I love was that they were able to get athletes to explore other events, and we see where it worked for a lot of athletes. We saw where it worked for Kenny. We saw where it worked for Melissa Jefferson. We saw where it worked for Allison. We saw where it even worked for Sydney. Sydney went to 3 slams and 3 different categories. So it was exploring, allowing athletes to explore other events. Akira Nugent from Jamaica, she said she was happy for it because sometimes she wants to get into a meet and the lanes are full for the hurdles. So now she can market herself to get in a 100-meter, whether on the
And a
diamond
flat
league.
and a dash, yeah.
Right. So it was working. There were things that were working, but unfortunately, it happened. Oh, it happened. Of course, they said that they're coming back next year bigger and better, and I'm hoping that they will because it created a buzz, and and another thing that I love about it, Dennis, was the fan engagement was off the charts. I've never seen fans so involved in track and field from I've been watching or attending. The fans got an opportunity to interact with the athletes. They were signing autograph. You could take pictures with them. You could dance with them. You could do a little, stuff with them. So
I was just about to ask you which aspect of the fan engagement. So you mean the trackside live event fan
yes,
engagement?
hmm
That was great.
yeah,
And another colleague of mine, Rashid Parchment, he works at the Jamaica Observer. Rashid was saying, because we do a show every Friday morning on Antigua Observer FM. Big shout out to the regional crew. Um, Rashid was saying that the Kingston Slam was the best event he's ever attended in his life from a media perspective. It's like everything was in place, everything was top notch. It was like going to the Olympics. So I respect what he said,
hmm
and we had an extensive conversation on that. And I do accept that. But, 2 dozen or so people, 20 or so maybe, people sharing $3 million doesn't do anything for track, right? It doesn't do anything for track. And this idea that they were bringing in new eyeballs, new fans, never happened, right? There are college and high school athletes with more followers than Grand Slam track.
But Grand Slam is new. It's just a few months old,
No,
Dennis.
no,
It is
no,
a
no.
few months.
My company is over 12 years old. TT Game Plan, right? And we did this league this year. And in that 1 year, since January, since actually February 8th, we've managed to grab 1.3 million views on Facebook, 1.3 million views on TikTok. Why? Because we calculated certain things, we built the league in a certain way, and we provided the athletes, the clubs, and the stakeholders with assets that they can use to build their views online. That was done strategically. I'm saying, as somebody who's in the space, somebody who operates as a social media account manager, I did not see any of the tools that I would have employed had I been the social media accounts manager. It was a lot of the kind of hype stuff that, yeah, it might go viral once or twice, but it's not going to bring me back to look on. I'm not creating fans. I'm creating virality. And they're two separate things sometimes. What Grand Slam track set out to do, it did not do. It did not create new opportunities for more new athletes. Melissa and everybody else were already in the pipeline, right? There were no new athletes. I shouldn't say that. There were a couple of athletes that maybe the public didn't know about. But I mean, I know Megan.
True, true.
You know
You,
what I mean?
you and I are track fans, so
Exactly.
we know these athletes, but we're talking about fans. All right, look at Kenny. To me, Kenny Bendenrick visibility has increased significantly.
But I think
You know?
everybody knew Kenny. I mean,
No,
everybody knows
not
this
every.
kind of guy,
No,
this
Kenny.
guy with the headband. Everybody knew. Maybe they didn't
No,
know his
Kenny.
name. They
Kenny
didn't know
was
how
kind
much
of
kind of quality he was.
Kenny was kind of in the shadows of no one, Kishin and
And
Oblique
Christian and all of that.
and
Yeah.
the other guys. So now a lot of people all round. I would give the Grand Slam a good grade. But
I
it's
wouldn't give them any of my money, as an investor. I just don't see where the business model was. It was great, but think of it like this, right? If you and me, we took our $10 together and we put it up and we say, all right, here's what. We go run outside and we find two people to run for that $10 and you take the $10. All right, good. Is that an investment in the sport? No, that's just a payday. And that's what I think Grand Slam track ended up being. Just a payday with really, really high television production value.
And
But
with
maybe I'm a
that
cynic.
and with that said, we're going to jump over to switching countries.
You see my
Sport
flag in the back there?
sport is a business, people. Sport is a business. Of course, I'm here with Dennis Allen, my good friend. Dennis Tay from Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome each and everyone wherever you're coming from. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, share, show us some love and thing. Now we are going to get into, as one person call it, all in the game call it, the Exodus, the mini Exodus with
Movement of the people.
Jamaica, the Jamaican athletes switching to. I did not write a script from this. I'm just going to throw some
Turkey,
questions
eh?
out there. But let me ask you, Dennis. Um, switching allegiance, switching countries. This is not new. This has been going on forever.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that it happened so quickly and with so many people all at once. But the fact of it is not interesting. The fact of it is actually quite normal when you think about it. We want to talk about professionalism, we want to talk about professional ethics, but we don't often enough, and this is not a knock on the Jamaica Association, This is not a knock on the Trinidad and Tobago Association. We don't often enough remunerate, incentivize,
Yes.
and pay people enough money to get them to understand that, yo, we actually think you're a professional, right? So professionals in this sport are actually contract workers, right? They're not employees. They're just paid contracted, you know, because they have a contract not with their athletics association. They have a contract with a shoe and equipment company, shoe clothing and equipment company. That's who pays them. So that's really like that's an appearance fee. That's a spokesmodel, right? And yes, they run and they compete. And yes, the show and equipment companies have exemptions. So a lot of those lanes in Diamond League are actually owned by those equipment companies. Adidas has a certain amount, Puma has a certain amount, Nike has a certain amount. And that is true for every meet that you would see a Nike ad or an Adidas ad or anything at all. Because that's what these companies do. They buy these lanes, they buy the privilege. It happens in golf. It happens in auto sports. It happens in everything. The money man gets to say, hey, my guy or my girl is coming over on Friday, and yeah, you put her in and make sure she's okay. That's just how it is. That's business.
Sport is a business. Sport is a career. And I'm going to be honest with you. Today, for me, I heard this news from last night, but there was no confirmation. And I'm not a morning person, so I was in my sleep this morning, and my phone was just going off, and I was like, what is happening in the sport industry? Because it must be track and field. And I'm like, why is my phone going off like that? Anyway, I still didn't pay it any mind. And when I checked my phone was overloaded with messages of the athletes who are switching and all of that. And of course, I don't break a news unless I have seen formal um something
Confirmation,
formal
thing
confirmation
that could stand
and
up in court.
credible confirmation. So I did not talk about it much. I'll say I heard names, and I'll say to people in my groups, because I'm in about 10 different track and field groups, and I'll go like, well, I've heard names, but I'm not going to call any names because I cannot confirm. But it was a bittersweet day for me. Why it was a bittersweet day for me was I am going to miss these athletes in the black, green, and gold, but I am happy for the opportunities that they are getting because we are the ones who said sport is a business, sport is a career, and athletes should capitalize on their earning opportunities. So let me ask you now, should we be angry?
No,
No, I don't think
no,
so. I don't
no,
think
no,
so.
no, no. Listen, end of the day, those guys are Jamaicans.
Hmm. Hmm.
They would have a different shirt on. They might win a medal for a different country. They're very likely to do so. Right? Turkey is a first world country with a lot of support and a very strong sports culture in a lot of different things. Football, basketball, volleyball, and of course track and field. They have a huge track and field family over there. It's big. It's a big sport there. So, do they have the athletes who are competing at the highest level? Not consistently. Do they have passports to give away? Apparently, they do,
They do.
right? But when your Jamaican boys and girls go over there, are they in a situation where they're deprived of anything? No. If this had happened, let's just say you woke up this morning and heard that the entire graduating class at GC Foster got jobs in European Union, USA, Canada, and the UK. Wouldn't that be front page news and everybody clapping? What's the difference?
What's the difference? There
What's the
is.
difference? If you
I
woke up this morning and heard, right, everybody from Heidel, from Walmart, from KC and JC got scholarships. Everybody, every graduating child got scholarships in China, Japan, the UK, Indonesia, Malaysia,
celebrating.
everything, and everybody get through.
We would be celebrating.
We throw a party till next week.
Yeah, we
So
would be.
now what we got? We got jerk turkey, and we're gonna love it. That's what
Listen,
it is. The new meal is jerk turkey,
I
and
said,
that's gonna be the thing.
I have said to my peers, I said, look, this is a business. We are the ones within our circle keep saying that sport is a business, it is a career, and the athlete should approach it as if it is a business and it is a career. And, I said to people, if you're in a job and that job is not treating you well, what do? We find another job and we move on. These athletes will be working for another country. I'm not saying that I am not going to miss them competing for Jamaica. I'm going to miss them because I'm talking about our medalists from Paris. These people just won gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal for the country. But we have to now face the reality that sport is a business. These athletes are in it to make money. And the thing is that if you want your employees to stay with your organization, you will have to treat them well.
Look at something. Remember when Asafa said that he had gotten offers early in his career to make a switch and he just never took it. But in hindsight, if he had done that, if he had gotten that offer, a chance to do that offer again, he would have taken it. Remember how much licks he get up and down,
I remember, yeah,
and then people were listening and the athletes were saying, "Oh, okay,
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
you know what? Asafa say, and I'm not putting this on Asafa because if you look, Asafa have car, house, nice life, nice wife. He's still fit. He look like he could do another sub 10 right now. Maybe
Hmm.
not today, but give him a week or two in training and yeah, let Glenn Mills work on him for a minute and he'll be right back where he started. Why? Because the guy was class, right? But if a Safa is telling you, and he was one of the best ever,
Hmm.
not just Jamaicans, the best ever, he was a world record holder, right? If Asafa is telling you, I did not get the love here at home, don't watch Asafa. That's the victim. Don't blame the victim. Go and say, hey, Asafa, what did you really expect? What should have happened? And who were the people that hurt you? And let's see how the people in those same positions can operate differently in a new paradigm and change the way we have these relationships with our athletes. That conversation never took place.
Yeah,
So what happened? Now you see why you need to have those conversations.
yeah,
Trinidad and Tobago, nobody showed up for the relays. Trinidad and Tobago, we have relay worlds, we have relay goals in the Olympics. Why? Because we may not be the marquee in the Caribbean, but we always there. We always there. Go
that's
back to the 200-meter Olympic final in in Mexico
1976.
City. No, in Mexico City. You have Carlos and them in the hand glove there. You know who was fourth? Trini. Trini. We always had Trinis in the mix.
But look at last year, who was third?
This is what I'm saying. Last year in the Olympics,
Hmm.
who was there? Jareem Richards is right there,
Yeah.
fourth. You know, in Rio, who was fourth?
But
Marshall Cedeno.
but
You know what I mean?
something, I want to say this because maybe a lot of people not paying attention because Jamaicans are not the only ones competing for other country. When you look at a lot of athletes from Africa, they're competing for Canada. They're competing for countries in Europe, Great Britain. They're competing for Ireland. They're competing for other countries in other parts of the world. So somebody was saying today if I think that the Jamaican athletes are being targeted, and I said no, because maybe we looking at it like this because it hits home, it's closer to home. But when you look at a lot of the middle and long distance athletes competing for other countries, Canada, America, Great Britain, Ireland, and so forth, France, you know, they're Africans. They're from African countries. They're from Kenya. They're from Ethiopia, maybe Uganda, wherever. So this is something that has been happening for forever,
Look at
but
something too, HP, right? When I mean, we conflating forced migration with voluntary switching allegiance. It's different. It's not like the four guys who have already confirmed that switch, um, born somewhere and grew up somewhere and were some illegal immigrants or were some refugees. No, they grew up down the corner from some other Jamaican kid, right? So it's a little different compared to the African exodus of millions, millions, millions of people spreading through the diaspora to the European Union, etc. It's a little bit different, right? Um, but what is the reality? Think about it like this: you got two spots in the Olympics. You have 12 sub 11 women in the 100 in Jamaica leading up to Tokyo, leading up to Paris. You have about 10. All of them can't go. All of them can't go.
only
If you
three
have
can
a
go.
relay pool, is the maximum is going to be six. I mean, six of them going to stay home. If my daughter, I don't have daughters, but I'm using a hypothetical. If my daughter tell me, hey, daddy, I go and run sub 11, I go and come 12, all right? I'm never going to run in the Olympics for Jamaica. I'm never going to run in the in the World Championships for Jamaica. And I'm going to run sub 11 for the next 6 years. What am me as a father? What am I going to tell my daughter? Right? What am I going to tell Brianna? What am I going to tell what's this next girl who was just Brianna Lister? What are you going to tell these girls? What are you going to say? Fight for your one two, or take some money from Bahrain, take some money from Turkey. Me as a dad,
It's a
yes,
big
I want to wave my flag.
hmm
Yes,
but
but you know what?
you can
In duty free, I will pick up that same Bahrain flag and that same Turkey flag. I will pick up that flag and I will put on that jersey and I'll wave that flag for you too. Because at the end of the day, you only fast for so long. You're only going to have this little bright light of yours for so long. And you want to see the best of you, the best of your child, the best of your family, best opportunity for that kid who used to sit down in the back of my class, you know, who I used to train with in the same club. These are the things that we as individuals stopped thinking about when we started thinking about patriot and flag and all of that. And I'm telling you, you see the flag in the back of me? Trinidad and Tobago flag. Why doesn't it have the red? Because we bled it out, right?
there's no
Last year,
red there's no red in your flag
there's
at
no
all.
red in my flag. You know why? Because we bled it out. There were 600 murders last year, 600 homicides, right?
Wow.
The year before it was 620, right? Where are those families? So we have a project, Project 600, where we talk about and we advocate for reducing gun violence, especially in our community, right? If I go and I wave that Chinny flag, I have to explain it to everybody. But let me just say this: a lot of what we try to do with youth advocacy is in those at-risk communities, we say, get out of here with sports, get out of that community, use sports as the
Yes.
vehicle
Yes.
to get that escape velocity. And in this case, that escape velocity took them all the way clear of our shores.
If we want the athletes to understand that this is their career and sport is a business, we will have to adjust. We will have to find a way to adjust because everybody wants the job that is paying them the most money. I don't know of anybody who doesn't want a job that is paying them the most money. But before we go any further, Anthony Henry is saying that is not a great model, HP. I think he is referring to when I said that this is not new. You have a lot of Africans competing around the world for other countries. But Ruth Williams Simpson, who is an Olympian, a Jamaican Olympian, three-time Olympian, she's saying, my question is, what can be done to minimize the migration? No, Jamaica has had quite a few athletes who have competed for other countries. They competed for Great Britain. They competed for Canada, the United States. I could call so many names. Linford Christie is a Jamaican. He
Hmm.
competed for Great Britain. Donovan Bailey, Ben Johnson, they're Jamaicans, competed for Canada. Sanya Richards, a Jamaican, competed for the United States. Inga Miller, who is the daughter of Lennox Miller, who is a Jamaican Olympian and medalist, his daughter competed for the United States. Evan Saunders, a Jamaican, competed for Canada at the Olympic Games. So this is not new what is going on, but this generation now is understanding that this is a business. Sport is a business. I love my country. And let me tell you something. I think this must have been a hard decision for our athletes to make. I don't think it was easy. I think it
No,
was tough because they know how the Jamaican public can be. And for them to do this and maybe to deal with the backlash, it must have been a lot of stress on them. But if we are not able to create a safe space, an environment where these athletes can earn and set up their wealth for generations to come, their family, their wives, their children, their husband, whatever, they are going to go and find it somewhere because the sport is no longer an amateur sport.
that's entirely correct. And you know what you said there is it's not just valid, it's an important part of the considerations for you as an athlete. You have to start thinking of your legacy, but you have to stop thinking of, all right, okay, nobody is saying you should not be patriotic. Of course not. All right. But where is your future? How many athletes can we talk about who are former this and former that and Olympians and all of these other things who died in poverty,
Yeah.
who died all alone in a room to be discovered 3 or 4 days later by somebody coming because the room was smelling.
Hmm.
Come on, let's be real. And not just here, right? Sport is sacrifice, a lot of sacrifice to get to the top. You know how many Friday night line, you know how much Saturday night movies, you know how many things you have to sacrifice. You're talking about decades. Most of these athletes would start before age 10. Most of them will compete until the 30s, mid 30s. Talking about 20 some years. They give up everything. No ice cream for 4 or 5 months. No juice.
Yes.
These are things, no snacks. So when you hear that an athlete switches, it's not because they don't love their Jamaica or their Trinidad. No, it is because they love themselves to a point where they want to continue in that sport and they want to build on that sacrifice. They're still going to have rice and peas every Sunday. They're still going to make that jerk oxtail and they're going to have that stew oxtail and they're going to have that curry. They're still going to have that little Escovitch fish. They're never going to stop being Jamaican.
True.
But what they're going to do is they're going to go and compete for somebody who shows them the love, respect, and shows them the money.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Mm-hmm.
can't fight that down. You
True.
can't fight that down. What you have to do is start looking inside now and say, hey, not just what did we do wrong by them, but what are we doing institutionally that needs to be changed, needs to be revised, and how are we going to start getting more money? Here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have a problem. We have sports administrators, and this is no knock on anybody else. We have sports administrators, sports promoters who look to government for money. And I keep telling them their financial strategy is let me write a better letter than the last person did. Let me do a better package than the last person did.
I
Because
don't
it's going to
think
ministry.
I don't
It's
think
going to ministry.
government should be giving
They're
sports
stretched out.
promoters. Yeah, I don't think government should be giving sports promoters money for their event. Where that money should go is within the different federations. So you send some of that money to your track and field, some to football, some to netball, some to cricket. But to give that money to an event organizer, I don't know. That just don't make any sense. An event organizer is supposed to market their event, get sponsors for their event. So whatever money government is giving to sports should go to the different bodies. So all right, look for instance, our two throwers from last year, Roger Stoner and Rajendra Campbell, they were struggling financially. Rajendra Campbell, he was working a 9 to 5. They wanted to give up the sport, and of course, they got help from their family and maybe friends. Those are two of the athletes. No, I don't know if they got financial help, but those are two of the first athletes that I would say, okay, a gold medal and a bronze medal. That's history. That's history right there. So let us allocate some funds and say, okay, let's target 2028, 2028, and say to these two young men, okay, how can we help to help you with your, your development, your progression for the next 3 years going to 2028, and help them, because a coach was telling me today, which I did not know, throwers have to go to the gym 6 to 7 days per week because they have to be so strong to throw those things. They have to be in the gym constantly, and that costs money. That will cost money.
And not only that, too, it's a different it's a different energy system. But here's what though. Think of it like this, right? You you drove to work today or you drove out there today, you walked on the street, any street, right? As a politician, if I fix that road, if I give everybody on that street water, lights, right? If I have that community feeling safe, those people will vote for me, right? Those people will feel like, you know what, yeah, I could bring this MP back into parliament, or I could bring this councillor back into local government because I see them working. If I go and I give this year, if I give 300 million to every federation, how many Olympic medals will they win? Zero. You know why? It's not Olympic year. So for a politician, it's easy to stack some bills on our Olympic year. So 28, 28, yeah, we go boast about that. But outside of that year, the money is thin, it doesn't stretch very far, and there's little political value. So a politician is just not going to be incentivized to give you more money outside of our Olympic year. It's not like that for them. But think of it like this: that conversation with the two throwers. What are your preparations for LA? Did that happen? Did that take place? Was that satisfactory for these athletes? And did they say, you know what, I'm going to take this money from Jamaica and then I'm still going to go and compete for Turkey? They didn't do that, did they? Because it is my understanding that that conversation never took place. So if you're telling me I just won medals at the highest level of competition for this sport, and you really don't care, then what is it? What is it? Did they get a house? Did they get a piece of land somewhere? They got a little boat to go and fish with? Nothing, right? What are we talking about then? If you're not showing them love and you're not showing them support, then you have to be showing them this at the waving gallery when they fly out to another country.
They
You
have all
gotta be real.
they have all right to go and seek it. And we just, as I said before, and I can say this over and over, we just have to accept that this is their career. They're entitled to move from one job to the next because that's what we do in real life. If I'm with
Hmm.
a company and that company, I don't think they're compensating me enough, I look another job when I get that other job with better benefits, a better salary package, better traveling, better all of that. I bid that first job goodbye. I'm not doing it disrespectfully, but I am going to move on because at the end of the day, I should be able to retire comfortably. And we are the same ones who are going to say, oh, you were in the sport for so many years, and now that you retire, you want the country to look after you. So they have to do what they have to do. And I'm just hoping that the Jamaican public will support them on this because it is business. It's
You know
business.
what I think for
It's
these guys too, I think they're comfortable with, you know what, they kinda cut the cord, they cut the umbilical cord and they're gone. I don't think they will be
I will still
surprised.
support them. I will still support them and
I mean,
cheer.
yeah, of course, look at how many Cuban jumpers took part in the Olympics for other countries.
Hmm.
It's something. It's a thing.
It's a
Look at how
market.
many Cubans play in the Major League Baseball. It's a thing. Look at how many Cuban cyclists
Look at
ride in the states, and they,
look
they
at
cannot.
football. Look at football. Look at soccer. Look at how many Africans playing for countries in Europe
Well,
at
for different reasons, though.
the
I'm just
international
saying for
level.
different reasons. Different reasons.
A
But
lot of it
the
is
point is the point is
resources.
valid. The
Resources.
point is valid. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it is a better life.
Yes, it is
It
exactly.
is
Forced
a better life.
migration is
Yeah.
part of it, and of course, economic refugees are also part of it. You
Yeah.
know, we are faced with very difficult times. You know, even when it's good, we in the Caribbean we still scrunting. That's a word we use here in Trinidad. I don't know if we you use that word in Jamaica, but
No,
scrunting, it sounds exactly like what it means.
scrunting.
Scrunt. Scrunt. It means your wallet, the lining of the wallet rubbing against each other because they ain't got no money inside of it.
In
That
Jamaica
is what
we say
scrunting is.
in Jamaica we say hand to mouth. We're living from hand to mouth. So as you are paying,
Yeah.
you
No,
get
but we
your
have
check.
we have a little more creative flair when it comes to poverty and the naming of such. But we in the Caribbean, even when we get it right, it's still it's not going to be the kind of payday that you're going to get in a place like
Yeah.
a Turkey or a place like a Bahrain or a place like a Qatar. Like one of our athletes a few years ago, young girl, she graduated recently. She told me that when she came back from a youth tournament, she had gotten an offer, and she and her mommy really talked about it. But she wanted to go to school, and she had already gotten a scholarship. But she was like, Tay, I really thought about it. I was going to switch. They had everything. They had all the paperwork. They were giving me a passport. They had everything. They had an apartment. My mom would have come up and everything. Her little sister was still in school. It was a big thing. And she was like, they were ready to give her the whole pack, but it was a Muslim country. She wasn't Muslim. They talked about, yes, we have very strict Sharia law here. You would have to wear a hijab most of the time in public.
Wow.
There are certain things that she was not comfortable with. But did they throw a lot of money at her? Hells yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, money makes the world go round. And in closing, I just want to ask you this, Dennis, to comment on Olympian Ruth Williams Simpson question. She's saying, what can be done within the region in the Caribbean? And I think it's mostly Jamaica because I've never really heard of athletes from other parts of the Caribbean competing for other countries. But what can be done to minimize the migration?
Well, it happened in cricket. Remember, two Bajan cricketers recently would have gone to England. You have other island territories in cricket as well, looking to migrate as well. Um, we saw some others migrating to from, for instance, Guyana to Canada and playing cricket there, and the USA and playing cricket there. Half of the cricket team that came down for the women's on the 19 the other day were Guyanese expats and children of Guyanese expats. So there is a lot of other sports. So maybe it's new to track and field, but it's not new in general. What can we do? We can
Mhm.
strengthen our economic basis. We have to commercialize sport. We have to make those things make sense. It is not simply a case of we are creating pipelines for our youth athletes to get scholarships and then we're done with them. We have to think about for the Olympics and for World Championships, we have to think about professional elite. They may not be pros being paid by Nike, Under Armour, Puma, and Adidas, but they will be needed to compete against athletes who are fully sponsored by those same places, by those same organizations, by those same companies. USA gets something like 10 million US dollars a year, USATF, from their main sponsor, Nike, right? They pay their athletes, they have insurance coverage, they have housing allowances, and those are the mainstay of the athletes. That's across several different sports. In gymnastics, for instance, skiing, for instance, those sports are sponsored by corporate interests, not government. So if we are only relying on government money, like what HP just said, it's not going to happen. It's never going to be enough. It's not going to be enough for the pool of developing talent who are just leaving university. And for that first or second or third year, they may be unsponsored athletes. How do we keep them in the sport? That's the focus. It's not so much the development of our youth, 7, 8, 9, all the way up to curve age. That's not the business. That's not the business of professional elite. Jamaica has what, about 14 clubs that are pro clubs now? Excuse me. 14 pro clubs now. And where are they getting money from? Nike, Adidas, Puma. If that's the only money that they're getting, when you win something, what do you get? Who gives you that money? Where is the celebrity? Okay, great. You get a foundation like Chalian. Who is supporting her? The same two companies right through Scotiabankers. Come on, let the other companies jump in, right? And I could say that take out Jamaica and put Trinidad and put other companies. NGC, who else? Atlantic LNG, who else? Republic Bank, who else? Come on, where is the money? Show them the money. Keep them in the sport. Olympics does not pay.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely have to find and it's very interesting how you break it down, Dennis, where you said we're not worried about the babies up to Carista level. I mean, they're not the ones that we're worried about, but what about these athletes who are leaving university? It might take them a year or two before they start earning or getting a deal, getting their own deal. How do we keep them in the sport instead of maybe gone off to look a 9 to 5 job with that degree that they have? And because they have a team that they need to pay. They have to
Mhm.
pay their coaches, they have to pay their masseurs, they have to focus on their nutrition, their vitamins, their supplements. All of that takes money.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
With that said, I mean, we can have these conversation over and over again, but I'm just hoping, as I said before, that we will understand that sport is a business, and this is a business decision. This that our athletes have done, it is a business decision that will benefit them and their family, because at the end of the day, that is the primary reason for them doing sports.
That's right.
So, Dennis, I give you the wrap up word. Anthony Henry is saying 10 million for USATF is not a lot of money. Man, he's so cynical.
It's not a lot of money, but they make
It's
it.
not a
They
lot,
make it. They make it happen. You know.
yeah, they make it happen. They
They make it
not
happen.
that it is not that they're just getting $10 million from one place. They're getting money from different places. Different places.
That's only the Nike money. That's
Yeah,
only Nike money.
yeah.
That's
They're
not.
getting
That's not their total money.
right. They're
But
getting money from other places.
Merlinotti, name familiar? Where did
Mhm.
she end her career? Slovenia.
Slovenia. Yeah,
Show the people love. They're gonna keep them. You're gonna keep them.
yeah,
And yeah, other than that, wherever they want to cook the oxtail and the rice and peas, let them cook it in peace, please.
yeah.
Let them do that because home is where the heart is, and the heart is right next to the pocket.
Yeah. They just gone to another place to work, just like a lot of us who,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
leave our country and take up citizenship in other countries and
Hmm.
working in other countries. To me, it's the same thing.
Same
It's,
thing.
it's the same thing. It's just that they're athletes. But
Yeah. And
when you
once they beat in America, we good.
yeah, yeah, I mean, when you leave your country and become a citizen of another country, it's basically the same thing. You're working there, you're trying to better your life. It doesn't
That's
mean
right.
that you've sold out your country or you've abandoned or you're not patriotic. It's just that it is a better way for you and your family. And that's how I am going to end my thought. Rainford H is saying the night deal with USATF is 30 million. So there you go, more money.
Says him more. There you
See,
go.
even more. But the point of the conversation is that getting money from different sources, and I think that's what we need to learn to do in the Caribbean. Have money coming in from different places, not just a shoe company or an apparel company. Get the banks, get the food companies, get the technology company, the phone companies, the cable companies, all of these, the media houses. There are so many places to get endorsement from, and we just have to find a creative ways, because I think in the Caribbean we need to have different pool of funds. Our trials is coming up now next weekend, the national championship or trials, and already I'm hearing from some athletes overseas that they do not have the plane fare to come home. So if I don't see them register within a certain time, because tonight midnight is the deadline for registration
Wow.
for our trials. So if a few days and I did not see a top athlete, I'm going to pick up the phone and call you and, hey, I noticed that you have not registered for the national championship. What is the problem? Oh, I want to come, but I cannot find the full plane fare. How much do you need? We send you the balance. Take the plane and come. So I think we need structure, and we need to set up little systems like these to help
Microfunding.
people.
Microfunding.
There you go, to help the people who are
Hmm.
struggling, so that none of your athletes who want to be a part of the national championship is not left out. But we have a lot of work to do as a region, and we have to find creative ways to do this, because I interviewed one of our athletes I think it was last year, and I don't know if you know the name Daniel England. I'm going to tell his story. Daniel England was unbeaten at our boys' champs in the 400 meters, unbeaten, coached by the great Herb McKinley. And when I was in school when he was competing, I was one of his groupie. And every year I would say, how is it that Daniel England is not coming back to try and make the team? And when I interviewed him last year, he said to me that I could not find the plane fare to come home because I was in college at the time. I could not find the plane fare. Every year he tries to find the plane fare, could not find it, and he was depressed. And nobody reached out to him and said, "Hey, you left school on a high. Why are we not seeing you coming back to run for the country?" And he just stayed out there, focused on his studies, and he just gave up on the sport.
And and that's something that's a tragic reality. Sometimes a kid just need a little money to get through the week. They
Yeah.
don't need $1 million.
Yes.
They don't need 15 pairs of shoes and spikes, and they don't need that. They don't need. They just need some money to get through this week.
They just need some money to come to the trials, to whatever,
Hmm.
to make that team, to
Hmm.
start building their legacy, as you say. I feel for our college athletes because I think they struggle the most. I think they struggle the
This
most.
year we had um, a bumper crop. We had 11 athletes. 11. Yeah, I think it's 11 athletes compete at NCAA outdoors, Division One outdoors, and we also had quite a few junior college championship champion athletes this year as well. Um, the graduating class, I think out of that, I think two of them will continue. I think we have about 6 or 7 graduating athletes who would have been in either D1 or JUCO championships finals who have left the sport permanently. Why? Because
Whew.
there's no money to get. There's
No
nothing to get.
resources, no resources, no resources, and that is something that we need to start.
HP,
We need.
sorry to cut you, but I have a call coming in. I have to
Yes,
take this call.
we are going to wrap up now. Thank you very much for
All
being on
right,
the
love.
team.
Take care. Bye. Next week.
Bye, my neighbor. Bye, bye, bye. Talk to you soon. Talk to you soon. Talk to you soon. Guys, thank you for being here. That was Dennis, our neighbor, Dennis Allen, or Dennis Tay from Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, we looked at a few things. We looked at the absence of middle and long distance program in the Caribbean. We look at the relays, why top athletes sometimes not make themselves available for the relays. And we also look at the big news. Jamaica is trending. Some of our athletes are changing course in terms of switching companies. Of course, there will be more discussions on that, and everyone will have their opinion. But my opinion really on that is it is a part of the game. Sport is a business, this is their career, and they have to make the best decision for themselves. It's not a sellout thing. They have not sold out the country. They are not, they're still patriotic and stuff, but they have to do this for them. Just like how we change jobs or we move to other countries and become citizens of other countries and stuff, is people will say it's different, but it's basically the same thing. Athletes compete for different country every day. It happens every day. We've seen a lot of Africans competing for European countries, USA, Canada, the whole works. We've even seen, Africans competing in Jamaica at the high school level. So it's just a part of the game. It is a business. It is a business, and please, I want us to understand that it is a business. And Turkey is going after LA 2028 already. I would say 2025 season is almost done. So 3 years, basically 3 years plus to LA 2028. And if and I kind of like this because it means that they have a vision. They have a vision to win a certain amount of medals at the 2028 Olympic Games, which will be in LA. So that's what we need to do. We need to set up a system to target LA 2028. How many medals we want in the field, how many medals we want in the middle long distance, how many medals we want to win in the sprints, and start putting things, systems in place in order to help our athletes to get there. So the athletes that are switching, I don't know if it has been confirmed, but I wish them all the best. I wish them all the best in their endeavors and their career moving forward. I'm not going to be one of those Jamaicans who is upset with them, because I know that sport is a business, and my peers and myself, we always have the discussion that we want our athletes to recognize that sport is a business, sport is a career, and approach it the same way. So now that they're doing this, we can't be mad at them, because this is what we want them to do. We want them to capitalize on their earning opportunities. We don't want them to retire and don't have any money and then come back to the country to look after them and look after their kids and them wives or whatever. We want them to be able to earn. I mean, it's heartbreaking that we won't see them in the Jamaican colors, but you know something? It is a part of the game, and it is a business. And with that said, guys, I will catch you again soon. The Jamaica Championship, Jamaica Athletics Championship trials, as we call it, is coming up next weekend. Next week, Thursday, this time, the trials will be going on in Jamaica. And of course, we will see all of our athletes under the same roof from Thursday to Sunday. So, guys, make sure you get your tickets. Make sure you get your tickets for trials. Go out, support the athletes, and show the athletes some love. And, guys, please, let us be kind in our opinions, our criticism. Let us be kind with our words. We're not going to like everything that they do, all the decisions that they make, but be kind, be kind, be kind. Vonnie M says, Vonnie M is Olympia 1972, 1976. She is saying money talks, the reality of where we are today in sports. And that's true, because sport is no longer an amateur thing. It is a professional thing. So sport is now a business. Sport is a career. Just like how one choose to become an engineer, one choose to become an accountant, one choose to become a journalist. Whatever career path you choose, this is the career for the athletes, and it is within their right to choose the company that they want to work for and work with. So, with that said, thank you very much. And Vonnie M is saying they are still Jamaicans. Of course, they are. They are still Jamaicans. So, guys, thank you very much for being here, everyone. Rainford H, Vonnie M, Anthony Henry was here. Ruth Williams Simpson, Olympian Ruth was here. Olympian Dorothy Scott was here. Anthony Henry, Olympian Lilith Hodges was also here. All in the Game was also here. Thank you for being here also. Tony P was here. Paul was here. Ethelyn Tate was here. Thank you, guys. And thank you, Africa. Thank you, Asia. Thank you, Europe, Antarctica, Oceanic, North America, South America, Europe. Thank you all for being here. And I will catch you next time when we will do it all over again, talking about track and field. It's all about track and field. Have a great weekend, and we will talk soon. You will see my face again very, very soon. You have a great weekend, a good night, and see you soon. Peace.
Jamaica's track and field legacy is unmatched. It is a story of triumph, resilience, and extraordinary talent. But do you know the stories behind the athletes who brought us glory? Hi, I'm HP, founder of HP Chat Track. My mission is simple: to celebrate the rich legacy of Jamaica track and field and shine a light on the incredible people who make it happen. Winning that race was a dream come true, but the journey wasn't easy. It's not just about medals, it's about inspiring the next generation. Jamaica track and field isn't just a sport, it's our pride, our culture, our heart. Every week I sit down with athletes, coaches and fans to bring you stories of dedication, passion and legacy. Plus, we've got exciting news and exclusive insights into the world of track and field. Make your Thursday night be at HP's place. Come hang out with us at HP Chat Track Studio, where track and field is our business, Jamaica.